How long does probate usually take? Well, of course, there are many variables, but let's just talk about what the usual process is in the state of Washington. So typically, somebody doesn't start the probate process until they've had an opportunity to grieve the death of the person who has died. We tell our clients that, take time to grieve. That's the most important thing. Well, how much time are we talking about? Everybody is different, but typically within about 30 days, then the personal representative or the executor, the person who's going to be administering the will, reaches out and says, now what do we do? At that point in time, we file a petition for probate with the Superior Court. We file the will, and then the court will issue what's called letters testamentary, which is a legal authority for the executor to act. So we've started the probate. We start it typically about a month after the death. It can be shorter than that. It can be much longer than that. But we don't want it to be terribly longer than that because all sorts of problems will arise if you wait 6 months or 9 months, etc. So we start the probate. What's next? Notices have to be given, and the publication period begins. That is a 4-month period. We publish in a legal newspaper and give notice to the world that this person has died, and if anybody has a claim against them, they need to bring it within this 4-month period. And if they don't, and they're what we call a non-ascertainable creditor, then they can't make a claim against the estate. If we know who the creditor is, we give them a shorter notice within that 4 months, usually a 30-day notice. Okay, so another 4 months has gone on. Let's say that there's property to sell. Has that property sold within the 4 months? It can. Or has the personal representative not sold the property because there needed to be a lot of work done to maybe estate sales or cleanup, etc. So usually what takes the longest in a probate that gets in the way of it closing, and by closing I mean distributing out the assets, is property. Real property needs to be readied and sold. Let's say it is sold at month 6. Okay, then we can start closing the probate. How long does that take? It doesn't take very long at all. Typically, whomever is receiving the assets do a receipt that says, hey, I've got everything I've got, and I know the probate's going to be closing. I don't have any problems or objections. Then the probate can be closed upon filing a declaration of completion. If for some reason that we don't have those receipts and waivers about the closing, then there's a 30-day period to give notice so that anybody can bring their objections, and then you close the probate. So typically a probate that we are handling in the state of Washington will run 6 months to 9 months, just because of all these things that have to be done. We are talking about what's typical. I am familiar with probates that opened and closed in 1 day because it was a very specific, special case. I am familiar with probates that have gone on for 2 years. Typically, the reason for that is because there's some fighting between the beneficiaries. There's some disagreements on items, and this is the opportunity for them to work it out. And they will do that through litigation in the court. Oftentimes, it is because a tax return needs to be filed, and the state of Washington may be taking longer to approve of the tax return and finalize it. And so it's taking a while because of the tax returns. That often is the reason that probates will go beyond 1 year. We're just sitting there waiting for the tax authority to put their stamp of approval on the tax return.